when you're coaching people or even for yourself, I mean, we all have days where we're like, this is just crap. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed and then you feel like the noise of the world is just coming at you. In situations like that, how do you tell people is the best way to be able to center themselves and close out all of that noise?
First and foremost, and I guess right now with COVID, right, a lot of people are going through that. So, first of all, you got to acknowledge those emotions. You don't deny them. You don't have this toxic positivity that everything's great
Yeah.
and so forth. So, it's really important to acknowledge sometimes life is shit, right? There's a beautiful book called The Road Less Traveled, and it's considered one of the top three most important books ever written. No, it's a deep psychology book, so you don't need to read it. But the punchline's on the first page. In fact, it's the first two lines of the first page. The first sentence of The Road Less Traveled is three words. Life is difficult. But the second sentence is the clincher.
Mm.
Once you accept that life is difficult, life is no longer difficult. The power's in the acceptance. We're just not accepting as a human race today.
Yeah.
And therefore we're getting distracted by all these things. So first of all, it's acknowledging, right? And then accepting and letting go. And then you can focus on it. And then you can process the things that you can focus on, or the things you can control on. So gratitude, by the way, is probably the other superpower. Acceptance
Yes.
and gratitude, in my opinion, are the two superpowers that as a human race, we do not understand how powerful that is. Because if you can replace expectation with appreciation, with feeling lucky, right, for appreciation of what you've got. I say to a lot of clients who might say to me, I've got to take the kids to school. I've got to help a client. I've got to do something for my wife. And I'd say to them, if you flip the O to an E in gotta, it changes from I got to I get to. I get to take the kids to school. I get to help a client. I get to do something for my wife. And that simple flip from an O to an
Yeah.
E changes your perspective in an instant from one of expectation or entitlement to one of appreciation. Yeah, just feeling lucky. I'm so lucky I get to spend some time with my kids in the morning. I'm so lucky I got a job. I get
Mm.
to help a client, or I get to spend some time with my soulmate at night. And it's fair to say that it's our perspective will get us through difficult times, right? Definitely pandemics, but we can use appreciation and gratitude in the same way we can use acceptance, if you like. They can become superpowers over all this, I guess, external distractions.
Acceptance can be hard, and especially when people feel like they're not where they want to be and that their life is maybe stagnant. And especially, like we were just mentioning, because of COVID, no one can travel. It's had an impact on a lot of people's businesses and things like that. How do people, we see the world divided at the moment with vaccines and, it's quite chaotic out there. I believe that we're here to be one, not this division that we're in at the moment. How do you coach people in allowing them to be okay and accept what's happening at the moment when there is so much unrest?
Yeah. I reckon there's two types of humans on the planet right now: those who see vulnerability as a strength and those who view it as a weakness. Unfortunately, the macro trend at the moment is we don't do uncertainty very well as a
Yeah.
human race. And as uncertainty is one of the tenets of vulnerability, we don't do vulnerability very well either, right? So certainty and routine have been replaced with uncertainty and unexpectedness and vulnerability. And we either lean into that and accept that, or we suffer, right? So unfortunately, if you see vulnerability as a weakness, you'll be quite closed-minded, defensive, on the back foot, feeling like you're being attacked. You won't be very compassionate for yourself or for others because you think you have to be this perfect specimen, and therefore you won't create that human connection, right? But if you go the other way, and this is all completely counterintuitive, unfortunately, as a human race. So how do we make it more intuitive than counterintuitive? Like any good snowboarder or surfer or skier would know that if you lean in, you stay up,
Mm.
and if you lean back, you fall back. So counterintuitively, we have to lean into vulnerability, because if you lean into the risk and the uncertainty and the emotional exposure with putting yourself out there and embracing vulnerability as a strength, then you're more open and open-minded to the brutal facts of our reality right now, right? You're curious and you're creative and you're adaptive and you're innovative, right? And you're compassionate to yourself and compassionate to others. And then you can create that incredible human connection. So unfortunately, there's kind of these 6 human needs that Tony Robbins talks about.
Mm.
But unfortunately, when times are tough, we focus too much on certainty and significance
Yes.
to the detriment of uncertainty and connection and growth and contribution and some of these other really powerful needs. So being able to let go of this illusion of control and wanting to make life certain and embrace uncertainty
Yeah.
and vulnerability. But let's face it, the world is incredibly vulnerable right now, right? You've got two options. You either accept that or you suffer.
Yeah.
That's literally your two options.
Well, the Buddha said a life of attachment is a life of suffering.
Totally, yeah. And that beautiful Buddhist philosophy about we should only ever be in one of three states: a state of acceptance, a state of enthusiasm, or a state of enjoyment.
Mm.
But at its most basic level, we must be in that state of acceptance, because if we're not, we're suffering. And I think that's what's happening at the moment, where, where our life should be different. This should be different, right? These expectations should be different. And unfortunately, they're not. So you either accept that and let it go and focus back on what you can control, if you like. And by the way, once you realize that your greatest growth comes from your darkest times, and your greatest learnings come from your most difficult times, because it unlocks the most extraordinary humility, because you're on your knees, right?
Yeah.
But also curiosity. Okay, what do I do now? How do I get through this? What can this teach me? Who can help me? And as soon as you start asking questions, right, small bite-sized questions, you start to unlock this dopamine, right, which is the antidote to the cortisol, the fear that we get from we're on our knees in a pandemic. And once you realize you've got that power to kind of work your way through that, that can become quite an exciting kind of ability to turn adversity into possibility.